Okay, now, from the beginning. Okay, now.
Are you ready?
Oh, I love that roll-in. It makes me laugh because, I don't know about you, but I can identify with a lot of it. The first thing mentioned in the roll-in was day 3, snatched a mega pack of 3-ply toilet paper. In our house on day 3 of the quarantine, my husband Jonathan came home with 3 Costco mega packs of toilet paper. 3. Do you have any idea how much toilet paper that is? If you wonder why there was a shortage of toilet paper, it's because it was in our basement. Last Friday, literally 7 days ago, was the first time we have purchased a pack of toilet paper since March the 16th. That means we were a month shy of having half a year's worth of toilet paper stocked in our house. This has been a weird season on multiple levels. Last week, we began a series called Start, Stop, Keep, in which we are talking about lessons we have learned during quarantine. I don't know about you, but I've been taking a look back over the past 5 months and evaluating lessons I've learned. I've been looking at things I started, what things I stopped or need to stop, and what things I need to keep doing from what I learned or experienced. I gotta be honest with you. Some of those things, those lessons for me, were even a little weird. For instance, I started and stopped and will not keep doing this. This is a photo of my husband, and that is my hair. In the span of about 15 minutes, this started and it stopped. Forever. To be fair, it was not Jonathan's idea to give me a haircut. I was desperate for help, and one day I thought to myself, it can't be that hard to trim long hair and maybe add a few layers, can it? I know all the hairstylists out there right now are shaking their heads. I know now. So I asked Jonathan to cut my hair, expecting a flat out no, but to my surprise, he said, okay, so I rolled with it. Before I go any further with this story, let me tell you what this moment was for my husband. It's what would commonly be referred to as a lose-lose situation. He was not going to come out the other side of this a winner, and I feel like he should have seen that coming. I mean, he didn't do badly on the trim part. It's when he got to the layers that things began to unravel. It was going great, and then I heard an audible, okay, so what are layers supposed to look like? I had him take a picture of the back of my hair and show me what all the umming was about. So I know you were just dying to see a result. So I have a photo for you. Check this out. I don't know if you can see those layers. I stopped this. This is when I stopped it. So like abruptly. Let me just add this. There aren't many spouses out there that would step into this lose-lose situation. So I'm proud of Jonathan for at least stepping up. It won't happen again. I mean, lesson learned. But do you know why I asked Jonathan to cut my hair in the first place? Because I was spending time on Instagram, and I saw a bunch of photos of people who had gotten appointments with their stylists when the salons opened up again, and they were all getting fresh haircuts. And I hadn't thought ahead to set up an appointment with my stylist. So I knew it was gonna be months before I got in. I kept comparing my hair with those other people's fresh new cuts, thinking something has to happen. So ultimately, what it made me do is it made me start thinking about lessons I've learned about comparison and how easily we drift into comparing. I mean, this is not a serious example of how my hair almost got ruined, but I was comparing hair. And the truth is, we all make comparisons on some level. Comparison is universal. None of us are immune to it. We are all tempted to look around us, to look to our left, to our right, and see what everyone else is doing. The thing is, while a lot got shut down during quarantine, comparison didn't get shut down. If anything, the tendency was for us to drift into comparison much more easily. I heard it and saw it and experienced it. My guess is a lot of you did too. Maybe you were like me and you compared parenting with how other people were parenting their kids through quarantine. Or you compared how you were educating your kids with how others were doing it. Or you compared quarantine schedules. I mean, there was your schedule, and then there were those who had, the color-coded charts with every minute of every day planned out, including bathroom breaks. Or maybe you compared who you were locked down with versus who you wished you were locked down with. Or maybe you have been stuck now comparing BQ life and AQ life. That's just short for before quarantine and after quarantine. The point is, even when we don't realize it, we are constantly drifting into comparison. I mean, we compare cars, houses, kids, marriages, careers, finances, talent, hair. The list can go on and on. The reason we do this is because somewhere along the way, someone planted the idea in our head of what we should be, and we aren't there yet. We want to know if we measure up. We want to know if we fit in, if we belong. We compare to see if we are worth anything, to see if we have value. We compare to see if we are great or better. Some of you have lived stuck in this tension for years. You've been told, you've literally heard these words, you will never measure up. You will never amount to anything. Whether you heard it from a parent or a spouse or a coach or boss or coworker, you know how those words have stuck with you and affected you. The truth is, and you've likely heard this before, whatever form comparison comes in, it is always a trap. Just like Andy Stanley says, there will always be ers out there. There will always be someone out there who is prettier, richer, smarter, stronger, happier, skinnier, taller, successful-er, or more happily married-er. You get the point. Comparison traps us into thinking we have to be the in order to be valued by others or even valued by God. Comparison teaches us to measure who we are based on who we are not. It convinces us that we are limited by who we are not. Look what happens on social media. I know this is low-hanging fruit, I know, and rightly so, because what happens is social media tricks us into thinking we know who everyone else is based on what they post. So we end up finding ourselves living in a world of comparison. Social media compels us to compare our worst with everyone else's carefully selected best. It's actually a tragedy because it causes us to become so focused on who we are not compared to everyone else that we lose sight of who we are. At its core, comparison is nothing more than a lie. It's a lie the enemy tells us, that we have to be someone else in order to live a life of meaning and purpose. Comparison lies to us about who we are, and it robs us. It robs us of our joy. It robs us of our confidence. It robs us of our time. It robs us of our energy. It makes us question our giftedness. And it even makes us question God. It drives a wedge in our relationships. Comparison either causes us to look down on others in pride and arrogance, or it causes us to look up at others in envy and jealousy. And either way, we are looking in the wrong direction. The reality is, there is no win in comparison. It's a lose-lose situation. In fact, the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon, made an observation about comparison that I think we would be wise to pay attention to. So grab a Bible or your device and turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 4. because I want you to see for yourselves what Solomon said. But if you don't have a Bible or a device, it will also be on the screen for you to follow along. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 4 through 6, here's what Solomon said. Here's his observation of comparison. He said, "Then I observed that most people are motivated to success because they envy their neighbors." In other words, most people look at what their neighbors have and determine where they are in life. They look to their left and they look to their right, whether or not they try to see whether or not they are keeping up. Solomon goes on to call this what it is. He says, "But this too is meaningless." It's like chasing the wind. Translation, there is no win in comparison. It's meaningless. Look at that word picture that Solomon gives us. He says it's like chasing the wind. That means you will never catch up. It means there's no finish line. It's pointless. There will always be someone else doing something more. Chasing the pace or lifestyle of other people will push us past what we are equipped for. A friend of mine shared this quote about comparison with me the other day. He said, "If you are not careful, you will end up living a second-rate version of someone else's life." Comparison is chasing the wind. It's exhausting because we weren't meant to run someone else's race. You can't win someone else's race. God gave us our own race to run. Solomon continues with his observation, and he says something in verse 5 that may seem a little strange at first glance. Here's what he says. He says, "Fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin." This might seem a little out in left field when it comes to comparison, but Solomon is actually talking about comparison still. He's not saying that it's wrong to have ambition. He's not saying it's wrong to set goals or have inspiration. He's saying on one side of comparison, there are people who toil and strive, endlessly chasing the wind, trying to be someone else or get what someone else has. On the other side of comparison, others sit back and stop everything. They quit trying for anything at all. They quit trying to make a difference. They quit running the race they have been given. Comparison robs them of their motivation to do anything at all. Solomon says only a fool would fold their hands. Only a fool would check out and give up on life. So Solomon says there's a better option than comparing. Look what he says in verse 6. He says, "And yet, better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work and chasing the wind." One handful is the better option. One handful is better than two hands clenched and trying to hold on to something that we don't even know if we can keep. Two handfuls represent stress and toil and striving. This is no way to live. Solomon is not making the argument that less is more. He's saying what you have been given, look at that. Take care of that. Run your race. Then you will find quietness. Other translations of the Bible use the word tranquility or peace in place of quietness. So in other words, when we focus on who we are and what we've been given, what's in that one handful, we will find peace, contentment, and satisfaction. So how do we do it? How do we get off the merry-go-round of comparison? Well, it starts with stopping. We need to stop believing the idea that was planted in our head along the way that we have to be someone else, that we have to run someone else's race and have something more in order to have value or influence. When we drift into comparison and get stuck in that trap, that means we have made an agreement with a lie. Those agreements we make, they sound like this. I'm 27 years old. I am supposed to be successful at my age, and I'm not. I guess I just don't have what it takes. I'm 35 years old. I am supposed to be married with 2 kids by now. I guess I'm just not enough for anybody. If my husband or my wife were more like that person, then I would be satisfied with our relationship. I have to keep blowing the budget each month to keep up appearances, or people won't like me. If I had that kind of career, I would be able to make more of a difference in my community. We think things like, well, I'm not that person. I didn't come from that family. I didn't go to that college. I didn't have that opportunity. I don't have that influence. I don't have that fill in the blank, whatever it is. That's the kind of thinking that causes us to chase the wind, to toil and strive, to clench both of our hands. Or that kind of thinking causes us to sit back and fold our hands and just give up on life. Do you hear what those agreements are full of? Those agreements are full of, I am not enough. I am limited by who I am not and what I do not have. This is exactly where the enemy wants us. He wants us to agree with those lies because that keeps us from living the life God created us to live. So we have to break those agreements because they're not true. I want you to hear this more than anything because more than anything, I want each one of us to step into the life that God created us to live. So we need to stop measuring who you are based on who you are not and what you do not have. Ask yourself this question. Are you defining yourself more by who you are or by who you are not? Stop believing you need 2 handfuls to measure up. Take some time today or this week and take an honest look at whether or not you have been stuck in comparison. Ask God to show you what agreements you have made. Ask God to show you what you have overlooked, ignored, or neglected because you've been busy trying to run someone else's race. And as God shows you, start a new agreement. Here's what that sounds like. I'm not married yet, and that's okay. God has a plan for me as a single person. I don't have the career I thought I would have. That means God has a different plan for me. I am not my brother, so I don't have to keep trying to be like him. I'm not going to spend my time comparing my accomplishments to others' accomplishments. Instead, I choose to celebrate their accomplishments and keep running my race. I'm going to allow my kids to be who God created them to be instead of pushing and driving them so hard to be better versions of the kids around them. I'm going to stop comparing my spouse to other spouses and choose to focus on the good qualities I see in my spouse. I don't agree I'm supposed to have this stuff, that level of success, that house, that car, those finances. You see, this is how we start a new agreement. We start thinking about who we are and what we have been given. Look at the one handful God has given you. It's there you will find peace and quietness and contentment. God has given you everything you need now. And when new challenges come, the resources of God will come. He's the one who controls everything. He's the one who gives and takes away. He's the one who has all the resources in the world available to him. Psalm 51:12 tells us that God says, all the world is mine and everything in it. Everything belongs to him. That means the reality is that with God and his plan for your life, the race he has given you to run is that you will never be limited by who you are not and what you do not have. One of the most liberating things you will experience is when you understand that when you allow God to shape who you are, you will have every resource you need to make all the difference in the world. God will supply you with exactly what you need to run your race when you need it. All the world is his and everything in it. And listen, breaking those agreements we make when we compare, it's not a one-time fix. We're going to have to keep checking in on how we are comparing. The temptation to look to our left and to our right, it will always try to sneak up on us and distract us from the life God meant for us to live. Some of you today need to know you can get off the merry-go-round of comparison when you stop trying to run someone else's race. And you start looking at the race God gave you. When you stop measuring who you are based on who you are not and start agreeing with who God says you are. When we do this, it is then that we will be able to step into the life God created for us to live. Father, open our eyes and give us the courage to step into the life that you have created for each one of us to live. When comparison tries to sneak up on us and rob us of our joy and our confidence, God, I pray that you will give us the courage to just refocus on that one handful that you've given us. May we keep our eyes on you as we run our race, so that we can step into the life that you created us to live, so that we can proclaim you to those in a lost world. God, this is for your honor to make your name great. We ask all of these things in your precious name. Amen.
Lost, but he brought me. You know his love for me. Yes, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
Did you catch the words of that song? You are chosen, not forsaken. God is for you, not against you. You are who He says you are, loved, period. If you would like someone to pray with you today, right now the chat room will remain open for the next 10 minutes. So stick around and let us know how we can pray for you. Or you can go to our website at any time and click on the prayer button and let us know how we can be praying for you. Or if you are at any of our locations, just head out to our welcome area and there will be someone there waiting to pray with you. Now, LCBC, may the Lord bless and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you His favor and give you His peace. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.